You're listening to First Fossil. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first fossil. Hello and welcome to First Fossil, a show where we learn together how to take that first fossil toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and today's special guest is a friend of mine from undergrad, and he studied international business when we were in undergrad. He's worked in healthcare during college, and then he ended up finding himself working in content creation, both in Hollywood as well as in our church denomination, which is the Adventist Church. So without further ado, please welcome my dear friend, Kevin Christensen. Hey, Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me here, Candy.
Yeah, absolutely. I miss seeing you. I miss seeing a lot of people, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think we all miss seeing just people,
just like
period.
Humans.
And like below the nose line of people too.
Yes.
Like I think any friends that we made during COVID, if we saw them, mask to mask, I think we're gonna like there needs to be a big like mask reveal party, and we're like, oh, that's what your mouth looks like. Oh wow,
I forgot.
Okay. Yeah, there's honestly some perceptions of people that you're like, oh wow, I imagined your face different. I don't know why.
So true.
It's happened.
This happened. It'll happen at Starbucks last week.
Really?
Yes, the barista who always like, hey, Candy. And I'm like, hey, Sarah. And then I saw her later and she was eating her lunch. And I was like, Sarah?
Right? Like people.
Oh, because I heard her voice. And she's like, hey, Candy. And I was like, hey, Sarah. Oh, hey, Sarah.
That'll happen all the time on set because we're very strict about masking policies. And then people will break for lunch and they take their masks off and people are like, oh, wow.
Like,
that's what you look like. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh,
it's kind of
interesting.
Like, has new dating during COVID been like? So at what date do we remove the masks? Is that
You should hear some of these people talking about dating during the pandemic or dating post pandemic. They're like, you hear these gurus and they're like, why don't you have the right to just ask someone if they've been vaccinated and they need to show proof with their vaccination card? I was like, dating is absolutely about to go in the trash for the next like 2 years.
Oh yeah,
I cannot.
We're trying to figure out just how to come back as a normal society of like
just how to put on pants. Like, yeah, can we start with how do you put on pants? Let's start there. Like, let's not even discuss dating. Let's just go with how do you put your pants back on, knowing that they no longer fit. Like, nothing fits no more. What are you gonna do about it? So
the reality of post COVID life.
Post COVID life. Nobody fits in their jeans no more. It's a struggle. It's okay. It's all right. In the meantime, hold on to your sweatpants. That's what I do. I still stay in my sweatpants. I don't care. I don't care about the business world in my sweatpants. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself? Like, unpack who Kevin Christensen is.
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like it changes a lot. Like, adapting to new situations and this year was a prime example of, I think, a lot of people having to adapt and change, and you kind of stay true to who you are, but that can take different forms depending on your situations and what life throws at you. So my background, I was raised in a mostly medical community in Ohio. My parents were, as you mentioned earlier, our denomination Adventist, and so we went to church on Saturday. And the community was very nice, very tight knit. Most people worked in healthcare, either on the business side of the hospital network, or they worked on the actual medical side of it as doctors and nurses and whatever else. And that was most of what we knew. Like, there wasn't, I always had this interest in creativity, but I didn't really see any professionals particularly in creativity. Like, occasionally there was like a photographer who was doing, senior headshots or corporate photography or something. But there wasn't a lot of like full-time creatives that I saw. And I really had this knack for creativity and an interest in it. And so I kind of got into whatever creative outlets I could find. I did theater classes and, and drama stuff for church. And I actually was part of starting up a puppet ministry that we did. I did puppeteering for like, I think we did it for like 10 years or something. And we used to actually go compete. Yeah, I know. This is for the people that are listening to this on audio. Candy is shaking her head right now. I know. Can you picture me as a puppeteer? Much less competing in puppetry.
Actually, I can see you puppeteering. Competing? Weird. But I can see you puppeteering.
We won a bunch of gold awards. We won some People's Choice Awards. We had a very creative children's pastor who would build these incredible sets, and he would go to these like children's ministry conventions, and he would see these new ideas or new puppets that were created, and they were usually pretty expensive. And then he'd just go and make them, and he'd come back and he'd be like, I saw this, and then I figured out how to recreate it with, some stuff from Home Depot for like $20. It was really cool. And we grew and grew, and it was a great time that we had. And yeah, actually competed. So it was kind of cool. I got to work with the Muppets a few months ago, and it was really neat. Like, just having had that experience of like doing puppetry in my childhood and then watching the pros do it right in front of me. It was really cool. And I'm grateful for those experiences, because I think it gives you a better appreciation when you see like people that have really made it their craft.
Right.
So I had all these various things in creativity, and I got on an improv team when I was in high school as well. And eventually in college, I was part of a drama company where I brought those improv skills in to kind of teach people. And that led to me sort of being an unofficial improv director for the team. And then the director for that, together, we started up this show called Studio 4109. And it was a live sketch comedy show. And so I was like studying business by day and then creating essentially like a Saturday Night Live, Mad TV, Key and Peele type show in the evening. And so I'd go back to my room and like write until like 3 a.m. and come up with scripts, and then go to class the next day, and then work on rehearsal or shoot a stupid music video that we thought was funny and we hoped other people would think was funny. And then, about once a month or once every other month, we would then have a brand new episode, and they were usually 1.5 hour, 2 hour long shows. We had a full studio audience there. We got our studio audience up to about 1,000 people, and had some cool musical guests. I think you knew one of them that came
just
through.
One.
Just one, yeah. So we had a good time, and that doing that stuff, it was so cool to see how creativity would start with. I mean, sometimes we'd just be like hiking on the weekend, and like it might be a group of like our friends hanging out. You know how it goes. We're all like shooting off stupid ideas, and one of those ideas is like, actually, that'd be really funny. And it sticks with you. And then that next writers meeting, you're like, hey, I had an idea over the weekend. What do you think about this? And then watching that idea morph into something else by a team of writers. And then that turning into scripts. And then those scripts morphing into something else when an actor takes on that character, or the director gives it a different, take on it. And then how that actually looks by the time you get it on the stage or on the screen. And it was so cool to just to see that creative process, like, take new forms as every person put their unique aspect to that creative concept. The concept never changed, but the take on it did. And it was so cool to see that just play out. And so I was like, man, I really like that. And I really want to keep doing that. And so during the summers, I had been working for the hospital network in the area that I grew up. And I enjoyed the people there. I enjoyed the work I was doing there, but it wasn't the same as this other stuff that I'd been doing. And so I thought, well, I know this is totally taking a chance, but I'm not going to go back after graduation, and I'm just going to see what I can do with creativity. And that turned into applying for a lot of things that I never heard back from. That turned to me. I wrote a script where I kind of put a lot of my feelings into it, of my frustrations with this stuff. And which, fun fact, a very large studio later on actually liked that script. So those months and months in the basement of my parents' house did not totally go to waste. So you never know where it'll end up going. But at the time, we didn't see any of that happening. All my parents saw were like, great, our kid got 2 degrees in college, turned down offers, and is sitting in our basement and going to Starbucks, not working or doing anything. And long story short, I ended up going down to Atlanta. I was interviewing with a local television station, and while I was waiting to hear back from them, I went down to Atlanta and just started being an extra in film sets. And eventually I moved up to being a stand-in for actors, and then which that's kind of a funny story, because it was a film about, it was a true story about an African American preacher, and one of the pastors was a white guy played by Jason Segel. It was a Netflix film, and so when they cast like all the extras for it, they intentionally, the casting call was intentionally for white guys who could maintain rhythm, because they needed a little bit of diversity for their like all black choir. And so my audition tape was just like, I put on some gospel music and, jive to it. And they were like, great, show up on set.
I cannot.
And so I was a part of the church choir as like one of the handful of white individuals on the black church choir. And Jason Segel stand-in didn't show up that day. And they literally were like, find the tallest white guy here. Just whoever it is. And Candy, I will say it was a great day to be a minority.
Stop it.
Because that was how I got bumped up, and I went back there, and there's Chiwetel Ejiofor, and he's getting ready to go out there and deliver this big scene, and I'm meeting Jason, and he's like the nicest person alive and just genuinely a sweet guy. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. This is different, and now I'm able to like talk with crew and cast, and it's a different experience, and you can start networking. And so then I had experience as a stand-in, and so I was able to stand in for other actors, and eventually met a producer's assistant who needed help with a music video that he was doing. And I showed him all the stuff that I had done with Studio 4109 in college. And he saw that, and he was like, I know this is kind of crazy because we just met today, but would you be willing to co-produce this music video with me? And I was like, sure. Cause like, I'm looking to move up. I'm looking to network, whatever, being available. And so I helped him out with it, and it went great. And he was like, cool. You were really good at this. Thanks for your help. I'll keep you in mind for stuff. And nothing really came of that until probably about 6 months later. He got a call to be the assistant for an executive producer on a show. And he said, I can't do it, but I know a guy who can. And so he called me, and it was kind of this, like at that time, I was trying to find any way to really move up with things and do more of what I wanted to do, and nothing was working. And I feel like I had reached out to, like, I had emailed every contact that I could email. I had called every person I could call. I had applied to whatever I could. And I really didn't see the way forward. And I got down on my knees and I prayed, and I said, God, listen, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to do stuff that's creative. I don't know where to go from here. And I'm not giving up for lack of trying, but I cannot see the next step. I feel like I've exhausted everything that I know what to do. And so I'm handing it off to you, because I genuinely don't know what to do from here. Mm. And not 30 minutes later, that guy called me and he said, hey, how's it going? And I was like, good to talk to you. What's up? And he said, well, I've got this show needs somebody and I'm busy. And I thought of you. Would you be interested in me like throwing your name in the ring? and of course, for me, I'm like, of course I'd be happy with, I literally just prayed I have no opportunities right now. But you got to play it cool. You can't be like, oh yes, please, I'll take anything. You're like, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll see if I'm free. Sure thing. What do you need? You need like a resume or something? Because in my mind, I'm like, yes, anything, like whatever you need, I'll get it to you. And he was like, yeah, send me a resume. And they'll probably call you, and this was, I think, like on a Monday or something. So he's like, yeah, just tell them you can be in next Monday. Give them a week or whatever. He said, I know they're looking for someone kind of soon. So I said, okay, all right, great. And so put together a resume, sent it to him, and when they called me, what I knew was, I was like, okay, I can't beat someone else for experience because I don't really have any. I've never been inside a studio office before. And so I can't bring all this, resume experience to the table, but what I can bring to the table is availability. And so when they said, how soon could you be here? They were expecting that next Monday. And I said, give me 48 hours. And they were like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, okay, all right. Well, I can tell she's like processing, like, oh, this is gonna be faster than, we do need some. Yeah, we'll be in touch. I was like, great, awesome. And so 24 hours went by, and so I'm, reached out again and was like, hey, I'm just curious if you need me in 48 hours, which is now in 24 hours. Like, do you need me tomorrow? And she got back to me and she was like, yeah. Sorry, it's been a crazy day. Yeah, can you show up at Tyler Perry Studios tomorrow morning? We'd love to. You've got the job. And I was like, great. And so I called some people and was like, can I crash on your couch? Because I don't have a place in Atlanta. Like, I need to be there. And I showed up, and they, showed me into Tyler Perry Studios and showed me my office and introduced me to the executive producer, and was like, great, you're working with them. And I learned very quickly, and it was a great crash course in seeing how a big show is put together from the top. And that really gave me a lot of experience with stuff very quickly. And then eventually I went on and formed my own production company, and I've done some commercials and some short films, and just a variety of other media. We launched a news aggregator a year and a half ago. And then COVID hit, and I learned, I had to pivot and kind of reinvent myself a bit. And so I learned all the COVID protocols that all the unions had put together, and worked with consulting shows on how to be able to reopen safely during COVID. And then that led to me managing and supervising shows during COVID. So during COVID, I've done stuff for Netflix and Triller and ABC and Facebook, and it's been a really, really cool experience, and learning to adapt and find that way to to really get into creativity. And it's been quite a trip going from that kind of place of like, you're holding on to hope, but not because you can actually see any hope. Sitting in my parents' basement there for those 6 months, not knowing if I was going to get anything because I was constantly getting rejected, to, just a few years later, being a supervisor in Hollywood, leading a team of people and making big calls on things.
Wow. That's such a wild, like, there's just so many moving parts that happened from just being a young kid interested in, media and film and acting and comedy and like all these things, and how it's like opened up very interesting doors in different places, and how you kind of worked towards something like that. So where in your story, or what parts of your story would you say were crucial first Basso experiences for you?
I think that, I think to some degree, every opportunity that you get, I've heard someone say, luck is saying yes to opportunity. And I think that every opportunity you get gives you an option for another. I don't know if you would call it a first paso or just another paso.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said, like, with this industry, the way that you do this, every job is either going to lead you to your next job or it's going to be your last job. And so I think with every opportunity that's thrown your way, it's either going to lead you to your next one, or that's kind of the end of the line for that one. Or it may also be, a chance for you to learn something along the way that takes you in a totally different direction. And one of the best examples was a famous writer who he wrote a movie called The American President, and he had put all these things where he imagined the day in and day out of what the American president's life would be like, just all the meetings and whatever else. And he came into the studio and he had this script that was like way too long for the film. And there was one little kind of side story with it, talking about this interest that this single, I think he was the divorced president. He had an interest in this woman, and it was kind of like a really side thing. And the studio looked at that and said, "We want that to be the movie." And so he had to pivot, and Aaron Sorkin had to take all the rest of that material and essentially throw it away and redo the script based off of that tiny little side story and make that the entire film. And that's why The American President is really about what if you had a single president who was dating during the presidency, and became a love story. And it really wasn't about the day in and day out. And so in that aspect, yes, he had to sort of throw away all those ideas, but it wasn't a total failure with those ideas, because he kept them. And all those script pages of the day in and day out then became the series The West Wing, which went on to win tons of awards. And so I think, the lesson that I got out of that was like, wow, okay, whatever season you're going through, even if it seems like, man, this didn't work out, there is so much stuff that you learned in that process that you may be able to pivot with and be totally successful at something different that you didn't initially see. So it's not a waste. And I think that, people that quit and give up, they're not taking the time to look at the experience and say, okay, how could I use that experience for something else that I could be successful with? So for me, the first pasos that happened, one of them was really right after college, when I decided that I didn't want to return to the healthcare space. Again, not because I had a bad experience, but because I really wanted to do this creative stuff that I had been kind of dabbling in college. And I wanted that to continue. And so, I took that chance and said, okay, what if I don't go back? Because there was, it was that risk of diving into creative pursuits. And I had talked to someone who had taken too long to really dive into what he was passionate about. And by the time he was diving into it, he was having to take a lot of risks. He had a wife and kids and house. And, it wasn't just him taking the risk himself. It was him, really all of them taking a risk because he was choosing to take a risk. And what he really instilled in me was, he was like, Kevin, if you think that there's something that you're going to be passionate about, don't wait until way later to take that chance of getting into that passion, because the sacrifice is going to be so much harder and so much greater, and it may affect other people too. But if you pursue that now, the risk is so much lower. So don't wait, and don't waste your life doing something you're not passionate about. Mm. So that was kind of that initial, that first paso was just making that decision of, okay, I don't know where I'm going, but I know that if I stay here, if I do the same thing, it's not going to take me to where I really want to go.
Right. So how come, you were doing creative art since before college. Why did you decide to do international business? Like how to, and why would you go to a Christian university that doesn't, I mean, I guess we had like media stuff, but it wasn't necessarily what you were striving for. So I'm just trying to process how did you know that you had this passion enough to try to make it a career, or did you feel like the safest route based on something else?
I wouldn't say initially. Okay. Like I don't think initially I was like, this is what I'm going to do. It was like, hey, I enjoy this. But everything around me at the time was like, that's great. And those are great as hobbies, but not careers. Mm-hmm. And so when you've got I know you, I know you understand some of this, especially as well. Like all of our parents, we love them, but they had a view of these are safe routes for us to go. And these are things that we need to do. And these are the things we would like to do, but we can't spend all of our time doing the things we'd like to do because at the end of the day, those don't pay bills. And that's how you end up homeless on the street. So to me, everything was kind of framed as like, that's really cool that you're interested in this stuff, but those are hobbies. Those are not careers.
Yep.
So, find something safe that's reasonable that you can also make a career in. So, at the time I was like, okay, well, this other stuff that seems fun and all, but like, I've never really met anyone who that was a career for. And so it was kind of, in the same way that like a lot of people, they watch celebrities on TV or TikTok and you've never actually met any of them. That technically that life exists somewhere for them, but you've never really met them or been like, how did you get here? Like what started this? And, walk me through all that. And so, for me, just all those kind of creative areas, it was like, I'm sure that it works for some people, but it's a big risk and it's not reasonable and it's not safe. And so I looked at something that I may not have loved, but I did like a lot, which was business and traveling as well. And so when they gave me the options of what to focus in, I chose international business because I was like, well, I like travel. Business is something that so far I'm good at and I do enjoy. I may not love it, but at that time, everything that I loved was like, you can't make a living out of that. So I was like, okay, let me find something that's reasonable that I will enjoy. And that's sort of why I pursued it.
This is so interesting to me because listening to this and then thinking back on things that my parents would say about the stability and things like that, I'm over here going, but y'all watched movies.
Yeah.
Somebody made those movies.
Y'all listen to music.
Someone got paid for that. Yeah. Like I'm over here
like going to art museums. Someone painted that art. Yeah.
Oh, so I'm over here like, so where did we get this idea that
you're reading you're reading a travel blog to decide how you're going to plan your next vacation? Someone traveled that.
Yes. I'm like, wait, how did we fall for this? Like,
listen, if anybody is out there listening to this and is like, I'm really interested. I saw someone do something that I would love to wake up every morning and do. Just start looking or reach out to that person. Seriously, reach out to them and be like, I like what you did. How can I do that? Where do I even start? Because if someone else is doing it and you're actually seeing that, I guarantee you there's like 1,000 other people, maybe even, hundreds of thousands of other people that are also doing that you've never seen. The opportunities are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, it's definitely a mental barrier that you have to almost break through because of those messages of financial stability. But I think with financial stability, it can come in different ways. And it comes at different times. I think with what we were taught was that the financial stability should come right after college, right? Like you get the degree, you get the job. Like financial stability, which that
what about privatized school loans? Yeah, we're going to skip over that part.
We won't talk about that. We don't have to talk about that.
What about the housing market? Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
We're not. That's not the part we're talking about. That's irrelevant to the conversation. See, so it's like, that was the one track we don't want you to suffer in society because you don't have a financial foundation, which totally makes sense. Like, can't even dog that. But I think the idea that that's the only route to financial stability needs to somehow change. Like, it's okay to even graduate with a degree or not graduate with a degree and do something different that at some point will get you to your financial stability, as long as you're putting in the work to get yourself there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're going to have to do something. You can't just sit at home and then like money just shows up. That hasn't been my life yet.
That pandemic unemployment checks.
Unemployment check. Thank you, God, for the unemployment. Thank you for my boss letting me go, because that unemployment check is actually a pay raise. So amen, right? Like,
I've been seeing all these articles about like even locally here. I was reading something in the news where they were talking about how local business owners are struggling to hire people because they can make just as much or more. Yeah. Yeah.
See, now you wish you wasn't being so stingy with your checks.
Right. Now I'm like, is the problem unemployment minimum wage, or is it what you're paying your workers?
Exactly. It's a problem.
Demand, guys. It is demand.
It is a real problem right now, post-pandemic, trying to get people to like actually work. It's a problem.
Yeah.
So people out here collecting the check and throwing it at Robinhood. So
yeah. Oh no.
This is the situation. We out here gambling, y'all. The struggle's real. But I'm just thinking, that I'm thankful for what our parents taught us about working really hard to provide for yourself and hopefully for your future family and things like that, and to work towards that. But I think sometimes there was a disconnect in also finding what your purpose was. But I think that concept of working within your purpose is actually a really new conversation. Like for our parents, it was like stability,
oh, yeah.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Everyone's purpose is stability. What are you talking about? Right. I am in stability. I got a paycheck. That is purpose. There's no other conversation to have. And now, we have millennial and Gen Z, and we're like, no, but like, we're here for a reason. And our parents are like, right, stability. What are you talking about? That's the reason. What I don't.
Reasons for you to go to work, you to get a paycheck. Yes. You not be in crazy amounts of debt. Yeah.
Yes. So it's like our conversation is different.
You're like, you mean that debt that we all racked up by going to the college that you said was going to hand us a job because that's just what you do?
Yes.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Hold on a second. I got to pick up my order from my DoorDash deliverer who has a PhD.
Yes.
Like what?
Exactly. Like that. And that's like the reality. And so like, here we are going like, man, like I did that part. I still didn't necessarily get the job. And now I'm still technically suffering. So if I'm going to suffer, can I suffer towards something I actually like doing? Right. Like, can we just struggle in fun? Like, I don't know, something that really drives you to get up and go, this is going to suck today, but I'm going to enjoy allowing it to do that. Let's go. Now I know I found something real. Like, that's the difference. It's weird, but that's the reality of realizing that, oh, this actually makes me tick differently than just getting that job to pay that bill. I think a lot of people are waking up not feeling satisfied, and you see the decline in mental health and things like that, where people are just like, I got up, I did the degree, I got the job, I'm doing everything I was supposed to be doing, and I still don't find I have fulfillment. That's the problem to me. And I feel like you started to lean into that, is what it sounds like, that you kind of were just like, I did this degree, I was good at it, but it's my head, my mind, my heart, everything is kind of still leaning towards this creative side of myself. And I'm curious enough about it to explore it while I'm in this stage of being freshly out of college and not necessarily having to be, married, a wife, kids, have to affect my whole family, or having been deep into my business, international business, and go, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't know what to do now. Like, I really want to go be a star and I'm 53, like, so it's like, it was a good time to do that.
There's some people that don't get into it until, listen, it's never too late. It's never too late for any of those things. How old was Colonel Sanders? He was like in his 70s or something when he like started KFC. It was like this crazy story of him like selling chicken out of his car or something. I don't remember.
Yes.
It was one of those things that you read and you're like, oh wow, that's really inspirational. You're like, what did I do today? Like here's this 70-year-old man who's like driving around like selling chicken and starts one of the biggest franchises, and he's
on
like
the globe.
And you're like, I haven't even put on anything outside of gym shorts today.
Yes.
Like, what is wrong with me? No.
Yes.
No, but I think, yeah, I mean, and going back to what you were talking about, like the sooner that you get into it, anytime is a good time to start. But yes, the sooner you get into something and you follow that passion, like a lot of times you're going to have to start from the bottom of whatever it is, whatever you're shifting from one thing, whether that's an area of expertise or an industry, or sometimes it's even just to a different company within your industry. If you're starting something new like that, you kind of have to start from the bottom. Like you're going to have to work your way up. And that's where the sacrifice comes in different. Like if you were wanting to, let's say that you wanted to get into film and you've been a successful, I don't know, CEO or something like that, you're really good at business. Like you're not going to start off anywhere close to what you were making diving into this industry. They're going to start you off as a production assistant. Why? Because you don't know how to manage a set. You knew how to manage a company, but you don't know how to manage a set. You knew how to take care of workers in a 9-to-5 setting, but do you know how to do 12-hour shoots overnight on a location that doesn't have a centralized office, where you literally built the office in the course of a few days and then you're going to pick it up and move it? And there's all these, like, it's a totally different thing. And so, yeah, you're going to have to start over from the beginning. You're probably going to have to start as a production assistant, making, instead of $150,000, you're going to make $150 a day, like, and work your way up. And your first assignment is going to be to watch the door over there for 8 hours and make sure nobody walks in, because we're shooting in here. And that's your first job. And so, when you're coming from, if you've built yourself up with that other thing that you really weren't passionate about, but it was doing good, it's going to be that much harder for you to step away and start from the bottom of the thing that you're passionate about. So that's why I encourage, if there's something you're passionate about, like, don't wait until you're too far lost in the thing you're not passionate about to switch over and dive in.
Yeah.
The mentor that I had, he was kind of my volunteer youth leader at church when I was in high school. And we ended up working together at the hospital, and there was a number of things. They were searching for a new director at the time, and he'd been there for a long time and he wasn't really being considered. And there was just a number of things that he was like, this really isn't what I'm passionate about. He was working in HR, and he was like, this really isn't what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about music and fitness and mentoring youth. And he had 2 boys and did a great job mentoring them and our youth group and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, that's what I'm passionate about. And that's why, I saw him go through it firsthand with his experience. And he ended up leaving his job there, going to work for a concert venue in Cincinnati, which actually was the venue where 21 Pilots signed their big deal. Wow. It was kind of cool. He took me back to the green room and showed me all the different bands that had come through and signed on the walls. And he was like, somewhere on here, you couldn't even like read some, because there had been so many that had come through and signed. He was like, somewhere on these walls, like 21 Pilots signed it, because they used to come through here all the time. And this is the room that they signed their record deal in. And I was like, that's so cool. And I was really excited to see him, getting into that. And then eventually things didn't work out, and he was on unemployment. And he took that time during unemployment to get his personal trainer certification. He loved doing a bunch of adventure races, and so he was like, yeah, I would love to train people to do that. And he had an MBA as well, and so he ended up working for a fitness company, and they told him, they said, I'd love to, like, you've got all this experience and we'd love to put you in management, but you got to start as a front desk worker, making our entry level wages here, our hourly wages. And he was way overqualified, way overqualified. But diving into that new area, I was like, okay, this is what I got to do. And within that first year, he was managing and opening multiple locations, and I think he won an award for them for that region. That the owners were like, we've never won an award like this. And it's like your first year, and he's so happy now and so passionate. I see him now all the time, even on his social media, just posting the exact same kind of stuff that he's training other people in. And that's when I'm like, it's passion. It's not even about the paycheck. He's now making the paycheck to be able to take care of his family, but he had to take that risk. And it was so much harder for him to go through that period of transition with unemployment, with the judgment of a lot of other people, and even people at church. Whoa, what? There's judgment at church? Yeah. With other people being like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you, working there anymore? And why aren't you, there's judgment there. There's fear, there's risk. He's got a family that's looking to him. And it was that much harder for him to take that step at that time. But seeing him on the other side, it was so worth it. And so that's why I was encouraged. I was like, man, I want to be on that other side, but obviously not with that level of risk. So let me start when I'm younger, when I can like still be on my parents' health insurance plan, when I can, when like I don't need to make, a big salary for me to be able to pay bills and take care of a house. Like I can just go and crash on someone's couch for a few months if I need to. And I was like, let me take those risks now, because it's going to be a lot easier for me to deal. The sacrifices for me will be smaller. So that's why, I say switch over and the earlier you get into it, the easier it'll be.
Yeah. I think
take that first
really
paso.
Wise.
Take it now.
Do it. Like
it's paso.
I think that's so important to recognize. And I think probably for some that's easier to hear than others, because some people feel like they're not totally sure what they should be doing, but they know it's not what they're currently doing. I feel like I've run into a lot of friends like that who maybe did a degree because they knew they were just good at it, but they didn't necessarily have a passion for that, and they didn't have something else that they could pinpoint that they liked. So they kind of just feel like, I know this is not it, but I also don't think I know anything else. And for people in that headspace, I think what you said still applies. Except it's the don't be afraid to explore early, right? Like to go on the adventure of dabbling. Yeah, because if you dabble before you have responsibilities outside of just you have more liberty to, make mistakes and, kind of just see what's out there versus being afraid to try that and then going further into life, whatever that looks like for you. And if you're adding people to your life, like a spouse or in kids and things like that, and then you finally go, you know what, I think I'm going to go discover what I want to do. That might not go. I feel like you have to have a very gracious spouse to go on that journey and like find that all of a sudden. But I think if you're in that space of what I'm doing now isn't it, and I would love to find out what it is, go ahead and explore that. The earlier, the better. You don't really have anything to lose if you don't have anything right now.
Take those weekends. Start dabbling in it. take that hour that you were going to spend watching TV or playing video games or whatever else and learn about it. You can, it always, everything starts with somebody dabbling in it. And a lot of times, you're like you were saying, it's, you try something and you're like, I don't know if this is what I want to do, but I like this piece of it. So let me repeat the piece of it and try it with something else. Like I've done a lot of different things. I've done script writing. I've I've been an actor. I've been a producer. Well, I've been a puppeteer. I was also a manager for corporate marketing initiatives. I've worked on app development. I've built websites. I actually was briefly hired to be a blog writer for a furniture company.
That's interesting.
There's been a whole bunch of different things that I've dabbled in and done. And, and what I found was, for me, as long as I'm at the helm of creativity, I'm happy. And so sometimes that's me writing a story. Sometimes that's me acting in front of cameras or on stage. Sometimes that's me just sitting down with, I had a conversation with a business owner in Silicon Valley that was trying to figure out how to manage his team and how to delegate certain things. And it was just going through the process of giving him some advice on something where he went, oh, wow, I never looked at it from that perspective. And to me, that was creative. And I loved every one of those things, which you would look at them and you'd be like, well, but that's so different. Like one's writing and one is business management and one is, like they're very different. But the common line was being at the helm of creativity, being able to say, okay, now you are giving me that position of leadership to be creative.
Yeah.
And so, that's where, if you can figure out what that thing is, I think you can actually plug yourself into a lot of different routes and you would be happy in any one of those.
Yeah.
I don't think your passion is defined as any particular career title that you stamp on your IRS tax forms. I think you can find true joy in a variety of different outlets once you figure out what the core of it is.
I agree with that completely. I love that. And I appreciate you walking us through that full story. And you're still technically in the process of it. Like you're still going.
It changes all the time.
Yeah.
And there's so many new things that I'm constantly looking at and learning about and different people I'm talking to. Right now there's a serious conversation. There's serious talks about a TV show that they're wanting me to produce. There's also been talks about audio drama stuff with writing and kind of creative development with that. There's other conversations about international brand management stuff. I mean, again, it's still all over the place, and I'm looking at all these different options, and I'm kind of just seeing what's really calling me and what's working out with this stuff, because if COVID has taught us anything, it's don't put all your eggs in one basket. Find what you're passionate about, but be open to a variety of different avenues. Don't lock yourself into that one thing. Stay true to what you're doing, but don't lock yourself so deep into one thing that, when that ends, you're stuck and you don't go anywhere. Sometimes that other thing, like the story with, the American president, sometimes one of those things can end up giving you the material, the guidance, the direction, or the experience, or sometimes just the contacts to then get into the thing that you really want to
do. Absolutely. I agree. I really appreciate you sharing your First Bosso experience with me and my listeners, especially the way that you unpacked that. I think there's a lot for people to kind of sit with, especially if they feel like they're in that crossroads of do I take the leap now? Do I take it later? Or do I go exploring for what that passion is now? Do I do it later? Do I ignore it? There's a lot of good resource that you kind of provide, or just support in understanding of what that feels like. So I really do appreciate that from you. Do you have any way that people can reach out to you or contact you or look at anything that you're doing in case that they are kind of curious to follow your trajectory, or maybe ask you questions if they have any?
Yeah, totally. You can look me up on Instagram. It's at _Kevin_Stagram. It's Kevin Stagram. And you can also, I have a website, www.kevinchristenson. That's CHRISTENSON.com. So, awesome. Or you can Google it, and if you see a white guy in a blue suit, that's probably me.
I cannot. There you have it.
I always love to encourage people to follow this stuff and to dabble, and just see what works for you. There was some stat I was reading about how, I don't know, and I'm totally making up these statistics, but it was something very high, like 70% or something of all first businesses fail. But then there was a follow-up stat to it that showed a higher number, that was something like, but 80% of second businesses succeed. And it was that concept of, when you learn from your failures or your experiences, I don't even want to call them failures as much as just experiences. When you learn from your experiences and you apply that to the next thing, you can be really successful with that next one.
Yeah.
And if there's like one piece of advice I can give to people, it's dream big, but start small.
Yeah. Don't eat the whole steak. You're going to be choking. No. You're going to choke. No. We don't need all of that. A little piece.
Dream of that big steak. You'll get there, but start with some sliders.
There you go. There you go.
No, but really, start with what you've got in front of you. Give it a go. You'll learn from it. And someone will see that and say, "Hey, I like that. Could you pivot it to be this? And I'll support you either with equipment or resources or money or contacts or even just education on how to do that better." And you keep that process up, that thing that you started small with is going to turn into that big dream.
I love that. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. And thanks you guys for listening to today's episode. If there are any topics that you guys want covered in the future, or any questions that you have to pose, throw them my way. Shoot me a DM on social media. I'm at First Bossel, and you can always text me too, because I will definitely respond. My number is 859-800-3396. And I love to hear from you guys. Please share your thoughts on any episodes or just what you're experiencing right now. And always hit up my guest. Kevin would love to talk to you. He's a talker and he's hilarious. So connecting with him would be really cool. And he has some really
good... Do you think I'm funny?
He is funny. I was at Studio 4109. I loved it. It was so good. He's really personable. So definitely reach out to him if you guys want to converse with him more and just learn more from him. And if you want to support in any way, you can always go to www.firstbossel.com. You can go to my socials and see what I'm doing there. But then the best thing you can do is always listen, subscribe, rate, and share your favorite episodes with people. And I think that's the coolest part, is listening to when people share an episode and they say, "Hey, my friend heard this episode and it really impacted me. And I just want to thank you for having even done this topic." So I appreciate hearing from you guys and connecting. And thank you so much for what you guys have done so far. It's been pretty much a year since I started the podcast. And so I really appreciate all the listener support and just there's some financial support. Thank y'all from my patrons and people who have just really been emotionally and spiritually all around just very supportive of this whole venture. I really appreciate you guys. And that's all we have tonight. So thank you so much and take care of yourselves. I know everyone's trying to figure out the mask thing. Do whatever's working for you. Just don't breathe on people. Okay. Keep your breath to yourself. And if you're going outside, remember to put on your pants. Okay. All right. So thank you guys. Thank you, Kevin, so much for joining me today. And we'll talk soon.